There's one question about Gandalf that I get asked more than any other. More than, why didn't he use the eagles? More than, how powerful is he really? More than, why did he come back as Gandalf the White? The question that keeps Middle-earth fans awake at night is this: what was Gandalf before he was Gandalf? Because here's what most people don't realize. Gandalf the Grey, the wizard we meet in the Shire, the fellow who loves fireworks and second breakfasts, he's basically wearing a costume. The being underneath that grey robe is something so ancient, so powerful, and so fundamentally different from anything else in Middle-earth that when Tolkien finally revealed the truth, it changed everything fans thought they knew about the story. Today, we're going to peel back the grey robes and discover the cosmic entity hiding in plain sight, the secret that makes Gandalf simultaneously the most humble and most terrifying character in all of Middle-earth. Now, I know what you're thinking. We know Gandalf is a Maiar. We know he's an angel. Tell us something we don't know. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets deliciously complicated in that uniquely Tolkien way. Most fans have no idea what being a Maiar actually means in Tolkien's cosmology. They've heard the word, but they haven't grasped the implications. And oh my, the implications are staggering. See, when we say Gandalf is an angel, we're using human religious language to describe something far stranger. In letter 156, Tolkien explains that the Maiar are spirits of the same order as the Valar, but of less degree. That sounds simple enough, until you realize what the Valar actually are. The Valar didn't just create Middle-earth, they are Middle-earth. All doesn't just smith metal, he is the concept of smithing itself. Manwë doesn't just control the winds, he is wind and sky and the very breath in your lungs. The Valar are living embodiments of the fundamental forces that make reality possible. And the Maiar? They're cut from the same cosmic cloth. Now here's where your brain should start tingling with that "wait, what?" feeling that makes Tolkien so endlessly fascinating. Picture this. You're having tea with Gandalf in Bag End. He's making small talk about the weather, admiring Bilbo's garden, getting genuinely excited about some particularly good seed cake. But the being sitting across from you participated in the music of creation, the literal singing of the universe into existence. Now, when I say singing the universe into existence, I don't mean some vague metaphor. In the Ainulin Dale, Tolkien describes how Eru Ilúvatar presented themes to the Ainur, the firstborn of his thought, and they wove these themes into a great music. Each note, each harmony, each melodic phrase literally became the laws of physics, the passage of time, the very concept of space itself. Olorin wasn't just humming along in the cosmic choir. According to the Valaquenta, he was among those who understood most deeply the mind of Ilúvatar concerning music and words. This means Gandalf helped compose the fundamental melodies that became gravity, thermodynamics, and quantum mechanics, though Tolkien would have rolled his eyes at that last one. But here's the delicious irony. The being who literally sang matter into existence now has to remember to pack his pipeweed. That's like having coffee with someone who casually mentions they helped write the laws of physics. Oh yes, gravity. I had some thoughts on that. Lovely scones, by the way. But here's what makes this absolutely mind-bending. Gandalf isn't just pretending to be a wizard. According to the unfinished tales, when the Istari took physical form, they accepted genuine limitations. They became truly incarnate, truly vulnerable, truly finite. And oh, the process of incarnation itself is fascinating, in ways that will make your head spin. Tolkien explains in his later writings that for immortal spirits like the Maiar, taking physical form isn't like putting on a costume. It's more like a mathematician choosing to solve equations using only Roman numerals. Technically possible, but requiring a fundamental rewiring of how they process reality. The Maiar exist naturally as pure thought and will, unbound by location or linear time. They can be anywhere, know anything within their domain, perceive past and future as clearly as present. But incarnation, that traps them in sequential consciousness, in bodies that require food and sleep, in minds that must learn and remember rather than simply know. Imagine being used to existing as a living flame of consciousness, then suddenly finding yourself confused by doorknobs. That's not metaphor, that's the cosmic tragedy and comedy of Gandalf's existence. In the Istari, Tolkien writes that they were forbidden to reveal themselves in their true forms, and were to use such power and knowledge as they possessed, working by advice and persuasion only, and not by force or domination. Notice that word, forbidden, not chose not to, not found it strategically wise to avoid. Forbidden. By whom? By Eru Ilúvatar himself, the god of Middle-earth. But here's where understanding the other Istari makes Gandalf's uniqueness blazingly clear. There were 5 wizards sent to Middle-earth, though we only meet 3 in the stories. Saruman the White became obsessed with power and mechanisms, ultimately betraying his mission entirely. Radagast the Brown became so enamored with the natural world that he essentially forgot about the people he was sent to help. Not evil, just distracted by talking to squirrels for centuries. The 2 blue wizards, Alatar and Palando, disappeared into the east and, according to Tolkien's later writings, either failed in their mission or succeeded so completely that their work was done in obscurity. 4 out of 5 Istari either failed outright or succeeded through methods that took them away from the people they were meant to serve. Only Gandalf maintained the impossible balance, caring deeply enough to suffer genuine grief and fear, while never caring so much that he overrode free will to help people whether they wanted it or not. So Gandalf isn't just wearing a disguise. He's accepted a cosmic gaiash, a fundamental limitation on his very being. He's voluntarily stepped down from godhood to become what exactly? Here's where it gets beautifully strange. Let's trace Gandalf's journey through Tolkien's conception of time and identity. Before Middle-earth existed, there was Olorin. In the Blessed Realm, he walked among the gardens of Irmo, learning patience and pity. He was what we might call a professional contemplative, spending eternities just thinking about the nature of suffering and hope. But let me paint you a more vivid picture of what this actually looked like. The gardens of Irmo, also known as Lorien, weren't just pretty landscaping. They were living embodiments of rest, peace, and healing. The very air there could mend spiritual wounds that had festered for ages. And Olorin? He was the gentle presence who walked among beings seeking solace, learning not just to observe suffering, but to understand it from the inside. Here's what's remarkable. While other Maiar specialized in creation or destruction, in fire or water or growing things, Olorin specialized in something infinitely more complex, the hearts of the children of Ilúvatar. He spent ages learning the precise difference between hope and mere optimism, between despair and healthy grief, between courage and foolhardy bravado. This is why, when Manwë later asked who would go to Middle-earth to contest Sauron's growing power, Olorin initially refused, not from cowardice, but from deep wisdom. He understood better than anyone what incarnation would cost him, and he feared, quite literally, that he cared too much to maintain the necessary emotional distance. Melian tells us that Olorin was wisest of the Maiar, but notice, wisest, not most powerful. Why? Because while Sauron was busy learning domination, and Curumo, later Saruman, was obsessing over mechanisms and order, Olorin was studying something far more complex: hearts. Hearts of elves, hearts of men, the small, flickering hopes that keep mortals moving forward when all seems lost. Now here's the secret that changes everything. When Olorin became Gandalf, he didn't just put on a physical body. He put on mortality itself. In letter 156, Tolkien explains that the Istari suffered themselves to become incarnate, and in doing so, became subject to the same fears, pains, and even death that affect all embodied beings in Middle-earth. Think about what this means. The being who helped sing the universe into existence chose to become something that could stub his toe, catch cold, and genuinely worry about missing second breakfast. But wait, it gets more profound. You know how Gandalf has this endearing habit of seeming absent-minded? How he sometimes appears to fumble for information that he should obviously know? How he can seem almost befuddled? That's not an act. That's not wise old mentor mystique. According to Tolkien's later writings, that's Gandalf genuinely struggling with the limitations of incarnate existence. Imagine you're a cosmic intelligence used to perceiving all of time simultaneously, and suddenly you're stuck in a linear existence where you have to remember things sequentially, where you can only be in one place at one time, where you have to eat food and sleep and deal with the absolutely maddening limitation of having to explain complex concepts using crude tools like words. But here's the secret that fans miss. Gandalf's power isn't limited because he's weak. It's limited because he's too strong. In the essay, The Istari, Tolkien reveals that Gandalf's greatest fear wasn't Sauron. It wasn't the Balrog. It wasn't even the possibility of failure. His greatest fear was success achieved through domination. You see, if Gandalf ever used his true power, if he ever let slip the cosmic forces at his command, he wouldn't become a Dark Lord like Sauron. He'd become something worse, a savior who saves people whether they want it or not. This is why Gandalf's death and resurrection is so profound. When he falls in Moria, fighting the Balrog, he doesn't die as a wizard. He dies as Gandalf, the incarnate being who chose limitation out of love. But let's talk about why that Balrog fight was so cosmically significant. This wasn't just a wizard battling a monster. This was two Maiar, beings of the same fundamental order, locked in metaphysical combat. Both had been present at the music of creation. Both had served in the blessed realm before the world began. The Balrog had chosen corruption, becoming a creature of shadow and flame in service to Morgoth. Gandalf had chosen limitation, becoming a humble wizard in service to hope itself. When they fought on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and in the long battle that followed, it was ultimately a contest between two completely different approaches to power. The Balrog fought with the unleashed fury of a demigod with nothing left to lose. Gandalf fought with the careful strength of a demigod with everything to protect. And in the end, the one who had accepted limitation proved stronger than the one who had embraced unlimited destruction. And when he returns as Gandalf the White, he hasn't become more powerful in the way we usually think of power. He's become more himself. The limitations are still there, but now they're worn with the grace of someone who has learned that true strength sometimes means choosing not to act. Here's the beautiful paradox at the heart of Gandalf's character. He's simultaneously the most powerful and most powerless being in Middle-earth. Most powerful because he's literally a demigod walking among mortals. Most powerless because he's bound himself to work only through inspiration, guidance, and hope. So the next time you watch Gandalf lighting his pipe or grumbling about wet tinder, remember, you're watching a cosmic entity who chose to be confused by door handles because he loves Middle-earth's people too much to overwhelm them with his true nature. But here's something most fans never consider. Gandalf's 2,000 years in Middle-earth before the War of the Ring. Think about that. 2 millennia of patient, subtle work. He was there when the Nazgûl first appeared. He was there when Smaug descended on Erebor. He guided the formation of the White Council, subtly influencing events across centuries while never taking direct control. This is what immortal patience actually looks like. While mortals measure success in years or decades, Gandalf was playing a game measured in ages. He could plant an idea in one generation and wait 300 years to see it bloom in their great-great-grandchildren. He could recognize the importance of a hobbit's courage, not just for the present moment, but for how it would echo through the ages of the world. That's not weakness. That's the most profound form of strength imaginable. Power that serves rather than dominates. Wisdom that guides rather than compels. Love that empowers rather than controls. The number one secret about Gandalf, he's not trying to hide how powerful he is. He's trying to hide how much he cares. Because if you truly understood the depth of love that made a cosmic being choose mortality, confusion, and limitation just to walk beside you on your darkest journey, well, that might just restore your faith in everything. And that, my friends, is why Gandalf gets genuinely excited about fireworks. When you've helped sing galaxies into existence, the small magics, the ones that make children laugh and adults remember wonder, those become the most precious of all. Because the being who could reshape reality with a thought chooses instead to make moments of joy sparkle in the darkness. And if that doesn't make you want to reread the entire trilogy with tears in your eyes and a smile on your face, then my friend, you might need to check if you still have a heart in your chest. But there's one final secret that brings this full circle: the Grey Havens and Gandalf's departure from Middle-earth. When he sails into the west with Frodo, Elrond, and Galadriel, he's not just going home. He's completing the most profound mission in the history of Middle-earth. You see, the Istari were sent to Middle-earth during the Third Age because the Valar had learned something crucial from the disasters of the First and Second Ages. Direct intervention, Valar coming in their full power to fix things, had repeatedly led to catastrophe. The War of Wrath that ended the First Age literally broke the geography of Middle-earth. The intervention in Númenor sank an entire continent. So when evil rose again in the form of Sauron, they tried something unprecedented. They sent help that looked like weakness, wisdom that appeared as wandering, power that manifested as patience. They sent teachers instead of warriors, guides instead of kings. And it worked. Sauron, who could perceive and counter almost any form of power, was ultimately defeated by the love of friends, the courage of the small, and the guidance of someone who looked like nothing more than a grey old man with a staff. That's the secret. That's always been the secret. Gandalf isn't powerful despite his limitations. He's powerful because of them, and that changes everything.